accidentally it can be infected. Transmission, as I have already told you, that that mycoplasma organism cannot survive in the environment for longer time because they are very fragile. They cannot sustain high temperature. They cannot sustain ultraviolet radiations. They cannot sustain the acidity and alkalinity. So, because of all these regions, they are not survive. They cannot survive in the environment for longer time. So, from environment, it is not like if you take the example of other like we say about that is anthrax. So their spores can survive for a longer time in the environment. But if this is mycoplasma, it doesn't survive for a long time. So from environment, the infection is very rare, or it is very less. The chances are very less. So from where the transmission occurs, that is why it is called as contagious. So it occurs from the close contact. Suppose if there is an infected animal and you are keeping other animal, healthy animal along with that, so the close contact will lead to infection to the healthy animal through aerosol route. So when there will be respiration, there will be droplet formation, and from through the droplets, they can be infected. Along with that droplets, their secretion and excretion can be a source of infection to the other animals. So close contact is one of the most important cause. In our country, this outbreak has been observed, especially in heavy rainy season, in monsoon season, and carrier animals are responsible for the maintenance of this disease. So carrier animals, the animals which are harboring the pathogen but doesn't show any clinical sign. So they are having the pathogen inside, and time to time they release them through droplets or through other secretions, and from there the other healthy animals take up the infection and get infected. So this infection remain maintained because of these carrier animals. Otherwise, it would have been eliminated. Suppose the infection has the infected animal, either they will die because of disease, or they will be cured. Or but those who are carrier, they are not having any clinical sign or symptom, but they are having that organism in them, and they are releasing it in the environment or in their vicinity time to time, and from there the infection occurs in the healthy animals. So that is how the carrier animals are the most important. Otherwise, in the environment, it cannot survive for the longer time. So suppose animal is infected, you isolate it. Even it may happen that animal may survive or it may die. Suppose it dies. Sometimes the mortality is 100% almost. Suppose animal dies also. Even then, if you have isolated it and disposed it in a proper manner, so that organism will be eliminated from that animal. It will not come to the healthy one again. But the problem is the carrier animals. So this organism has a capability to make carrier animals also. Carrier animals, they won't show any clinical sign, but they will have that infection. So you will not be able to know whether the animal is having it or not. And they are spreading the infection. So that is how this infection still persists in the environment. Along with that, as I told you, that the secretion or excretion of those animals may lead to the infection to the healthy animals. So if you are using all that utensils that have been used by the infected animal, if you are using those utensils for healthy animals also, that may lead to the infection to them. So nasal secretion or any other excretions like urine, uterine discharge, other things, it may lead to those also. Many of the scientists, they think that vectors are also responsible for transmission, but it is not proven. But it is said that vectors can also transmit because it is a droplet infection. So that droplet can be, or from excretion or secretion, it can be transmitted to other animals. So vectors, when they sit on the excretion or secretion, and there will be contamination of their body surface, and when they sit on the healthy animal, they can transmit it. But it is not proven. But the infected object, aerosol route, the droplets and the fomites, they are the proven things that are responsible for the transmission of this Mycoplasma capricolor. So this is the mode of transmission. This is host, range, that is goat, and sometimes ships. Not the cattle. Cattle cannot be infected with this Mycoplasma. Some wild ruminants are also have been reported for this infection. If we want to just have a picture of this transmission, so let me tell you that suppose this is an infected animal, and it will inhale something. So if it is an infected animal, it will inhale and it will come to the healthy animal through the aerosol route and inhalation, and it will be infected. From infected animals to human, there is no report. From infected wild animals to human, there is no report. So these utensils which have been used by the infected animal can be a cause of transmission. So that is one of the cause. If we are feeding the healthy animal in the same utensils which are being used for the infected animals, there are every chance to spread the infection to the healthy animals. As per environment is concerned, it has been mentioned here, it is poor survivability. It cannot survive the ultraviolet radiation. It cannot survive the high temperature. So that is why it is very difficult to survive in the environment for longer periods. So from environment, there is very less chance of getting infected from the environment. So this is all about discharge. Though it is a little bit haphazard, but you should not be worried about that. The point is, the infected animal can infect the utensils because of their secretions and excretions. If you are using these utensils for the healthy animal, they will pick up the infection through inhalation because organism is present here. Again, their excretion and secretion can directly lead to the fomites or droplet formation, and if the healthy animals are also present in the same vicinity, they will pick up the infection. There is no report of infection from healthy animal to human, from infected animal to human, or any wild infected animal to human. Some of the wild ruminants are also having this infection of this MCCP. So now coming to the pathogenesis. Suppose animal has picked up the infection, then what will happen? So once organism is being inhaled, it will enter the respiratory system through aerosol in the form of aerosol. And once it enters the respiratory system, there will be multiplication, that organism, that colonization, that is colonization. So organism will make it colony. It will multiply and it will make its colony. When the once colony is set up, they will bind with the cilia. Once the organism is colonized in the system or respiratory system, then the tract of the respiratory system, the epithelial membrane of that respiratory tract, is having a specific type of cells, epithelial cells, and they are having the cilia. So once there is colonization of this organism in the respiratory tract, so that cilia, normally what happens, there is the mucus secretion in the respiratory tract, and that mucus is being secreted. It is an you can say the protective phenomena. So that mucus is being secreted, and through cilia, the cilia used to move all the time. So once the cilia, because of the ciliary movement, that mucous membrane, some of them it comes outside through our nasal passage, and few of them we used to swallow. So that is how the normally it happens. But if that cilia doesn't work, if becomes static, their movement is restricted, then there will, and that cilia is also responsible for expelling all the organisms outside the respiratory tract. So suppose a dust particle or something is going inside our respiratory tract, because of that mucus and ciliary movement, it comes out and it is being released in the environment. But if the ciliostasis is there, ciliostasis means the movement of cilia is restricted. It is not moving at all. So when there is ciliostasis, then that the flow of that mucus and other foreign body will not be there. So there will be, that also helps in colonization and further infection of other cells of the respiratory system. So once that ciliostasis is there, that mucus will not be coming out of the respiratory tract, but it is being formed regularly in the respiratory tract. So it becomes, normally it is mucus, but when there is stasis of that mucus, it will be, because of that infection and other things, it will be converted into serofibrinous mucus. And that is infected material that will lead to further the pneumonia, the vasculitis, and fibrinocellular exudation. So that mucus, which is normal only mucus, if it is static in the respiratory tract, it becomes serofibrinous. So that is how it is serofibrinous. Now, once this colonization has been set up and that organism enter the cell, it causes or it stimulates the immune system. So you know the normal physiology of the body. Whenever there is infection, there will be stimulation of immune system. body will try to eliminate that organism or that infection. So that inflammation in provocation of that immune response, the inflammation is one part. So whenever we have an infection, there used to be redness and other, that is called inflammation. So if the infection is in lungs, so to eliminate that, there will be inflammation, and that inflammation is called pneumonia. So there is pneumonia. It is protective phenomena, but since body is unable to fight this organism to this extent, that is why the organism gets the upper hand and that pneumonia becomes the disease. Otherwise, there will be the provocation of inflammatory immune system, and in the course of that provocation of immune system, there will be inflammation. Along with inflammation, there will be oxidative cascade. That is called oxidative cascade. So once the organism enters the body, it colonizes there. That will lead to ciliostasis. The movement of cilia will be restricted, and the normal mucus will be converted to the serofibrins. Again, this mycoplasma, it has got some antigens. So the component of mycoplasma, there are components of the cell structure and other things. Those act as antigens. The polysaccharides and galactan and lipoproteins. These act as an antigen. So because of these antigens, the immune system of body gets activated. When there is stimulation of immune system, there will be inflammation and oxidative cascade. Oxidative cascade is nothing. It is just there is called as oxidative. There is a system in the body. They release oxidants, and these oxidants, they damage anything. They can damage a pathogen. They can damage your cell also. So that oxidative cascade stimulates to remove that pathogen, but unfortunately, it damages our own cells also. And if it is excessively provocated, then it is dangerous for the body. So we used to take antioxidant, but it is a protective phenomenon. Body is doing it for protection, but sometimes it becomes dangerous for the body. So the immune, whenever this organism enters the body, it restricts the ciliary movement, and thereby the mucus becomes serofibrinosus because it is not coming out of the respiratory tract regularly, so it is getting accumulated there, and that is why. Second thing happens, there will be stimulation of immune response, along with and amongst that there will be inflammation and oxidative cascade. So inflammatory reaction will lead to the pneumonia, and the oxidative cascade, it damages lungs as well as other organs also. So in this CCPP, the primary organ which is damaged is lungs, but along with that, the joints, the kidneys, the liver, it can also be affected. How they are getting affected? Because of this oxidative damage. So because in response to stimulation of this immune system, the oxidative cascade or oxidative reaction starts in the body, and they damage other cells, cells of kidney, the cells of liver, and other things also. So they may damage all those things. So this organism can, or this disease can lead to the damage of other systems also. So it has been written in the last point that it may affect the joints, the eye, the udder because of this oxidative cascade. And inflammation is there to protect the body, but that inflammation leads to pneumonia because it is the inflammation of lungs, and that is why it is called as pneumonia. So this pneumonia, it is it is called pleura of the this, you can say the pleural cavity of the body is also getting affected with this pneumonia. So that is, it is called as pleural pneumonia, pleuropneumonia. So pleuropneumonia is inflammation of pleural cavity along with the lung tissue. So pleuropneumonia is there. That mucus will not come out of the body. So it will remain here for longer time, and because of secondary bacterial infection and because of an infection of this, it will become serofibrinosus. So it will be serofibrinosus. So normally it is mucus, and later on it becomes serofibrinous, and it is getting accumulated here and there. So that is dangerous for the body, and that is how. One thing it happens that there will be serofibrinous exudation, because this mucus is being converted into the serofibrinous exudation, and once this has been bind with the cells, that will lead to two simultaneously two things. The first thing is basically it stimulates the immune system, and during stimulation of this immune system, two reactions occurs. On the one hand, there will be activation of immune cells, and that is how inflammation occurs. On the other hand, there will be oxidative cascade, the stimulation of oxidative cascade. So the immune system is stimulated in two ways. One way, there is oxidative cascade. It is nothing, it is a chemical reaction where the oxidants are being formed in the body, and that oxidant can oxidize any cell, whether it is pathogen cell or in our cell. So that is called oxidative cascade. For immunity, it happens. That is how our body gets protected from other pathogens. But this oxidative damage, if it is being excessively stimulated, it can damage our other organs. For example, let me tell you the burning topic nowadays, that is corona. So corona, when we are infected, we are getting infection, our immunity also getting provoked. So in some people, it is eliminating the coronavirus. It is eliminating the corona. Our immunity is not against our own body. It is just eliminating the coronavirus, and we are getting cured. But in few people, that provocation of or stimulation of immunity is so strong that their body is getting affected of that. So kidney खराब हो जा रही है, liver खराब हो जा रहा है. उसके लिए हम क्या कर रहे हैं? स्टेरॉइड्स दे रहे हैं. क्या कर रहे हैं? प्रेडनिसोलोन खिला रहे हैं कि इम्यूनिटी को डाउन करें. जबकि सोचिए, वायरस शरीर में है तो इम्यूनिटी बढ़ाने की चीज देनी चाहिए, लेकिन किसी में वो इम्यूनिटी इतनी ज्यादा स्ट्रॉन्ग, वो प्रोवोकेट हो जाती है, उसमें यही ऑक्सीडेटिव डैमेज है. ऑक्सीडेटिव कैस्केड इतना ज्यादा स्ट्रॉन्ग हो जाता है कि उसकी लीवर, किडनी और चीजों को खराब कर देता है. सो दिस ऑक्सीडेटिव डैमेज, बॉडी इज डूइंग इट टू डिस्ट्रॉय द पैथोजन, बट दिस कैन नॉट प्रोटेक्ट आवर सेल, ओन सेल्स आल्सो. सो इट विल डिस्ट्रॉय आवर ओन सेल्स. तो एक लिमिटेड वे में अगर ये डिस्ट्रॉय करे तब तो ये प्रोटेक्टिव मैकेनिज्म है. बट व्हेन इट इज एक्सेसिव, uncontrolled, then it is dangerous for the body. So whenever there is infection, there will be stimulation of immune system, and immune system stimulation leads to inflammatory reaction or the activation of immune system as well as the oxidative cascade. So this activation of immune system, it will lead to the inflammation, and this inflammation will lead to, again, the mucus is already there, that is serofibrinous. Again, it is inflammatory, then again exudation will be there, and that inflammation of this lungs and pleural cavity is called pleuropneumonia. So that is how it is pleuropneumonia. Animal will feel difficulty in breathing, and there will be restlessness, fever. The inflammatory, you can say the signalement of that, signalement, I mean, to that is called cardinal signs of inflammation. So everything, the inflammation means the pain, the swelling, the exudation, you can say the temperature, everything. So inflammation will have everything. So this is basically inflammation. So once there is inflammation because of that infection, because the immune system is getting stimulated because of these antigens present in the mycoplasma organism, and on the other hand, there will be oxidative cascades, means oxidative reaction will also start, and this oxidative reaction will lead to damage of pathogen as well as damage of other body cells. It may lead to damage of the kidney cells and other organs. So that is why other organs are also affected. So you can see here the lungs, the pleura here, inflammation is taking place. Because of that, it is affected, and sometimes heart, liver, and kidneys are getting affected because of excessive, uncontrolled stimulation of this oxidative cascade. If it is in controlled way, it will eliminate the pathogen. So it will be helpful to fight with the pathogen. But if it is uncontrolled, then it will kill the person or the enemy. So that is how the pathogenesis is there. So you should not think of this too much. Just you go through it once, and we will discuss again in the next class that bovine pleuropneumonia, and it will be clear again. So this is all about the today's topic. But as per examination is concerned, you should know the full form of the disease, full form of the organism, and a small form also, and the treatment. Now coming to the treatment. So as I told you, if you know the pathogenesis, you should not be confused, or you should not mug up the rest. This clinical findings. Clinical findings will be dependent upon the damage in the body. So it is inflammation. So every symptoms of inflammation. So inflammation में fever होगा ही होगा. आपको पता ही है. Discharge, nasal discharge because of this mucopurulent. Respiration difficult होगा because there is pneumonia in the lungs. Fever and painful cough. If everything is the symptom of only inflammation. Anorexia and dullness, it is very common. If fever is there, there will be anorexia and dullness. Dyspnea, there is difficult breathing, open mouth breathing. Protrusion of tongue. It is all just to cope up the respiratory you can say compromise, because lung is having infection, lung is having inflammation. So everything that protrusion of tongue, of throat salivation, or open mouth breathing, everything. If there is inflammation of lung, this will happen. So you should have a simple idea of inflammation of lung or pneumonia. You can write all the clinical findings. One thing you should know, that incubation period, it is 6 to 10 days, and mortality is 100%. It is mentioned. If the animal is infected, it is very difficult to manage it. It will die. That is, many a times the death is even per acute and subacute. So without any clinical sign, there is death. So that is also being reported. So that is all about clinical findings. As per diagnosis is concerned, as I have told you, mortality is 100%. So clinical finding and PM finding, postmortem finding, you can relate for diagnosis. Then there is isolation and identification of agent, and isolation can be done from the nasal secretion or the tissue after postmortem, from the postmortem lesions also. Then complement fixation test can be done to demonstrate if the organism in carrier animals, or if it is if the animal is dead also, then also complement fixation test can be done. Then tube precipitation test is mentioned for confirmatory diagnosis. So if the animal is having infection, we can go for this type of tests. But PCR is also recommended nowadays. The molecular test they are performing, so PCR is also recommended. But as per clinical point of view, if the symptoms are so severe, the animal will die. It is mentioned here that mortality is 100%. There is no chance of survival, very less. Or animal will become carrier. There will be no clinical sign, but organism will be there. So that carrier animal is more dangerous. So many a times such diseases are not treated at all. But if you are being asked the drug of choice and other things, you should know that. But it is not treated because either animal will become carrier or it will die, because mortality is 100%. So we don't need to make it carrier. But still, if you want to treat it and if you are getting such symptoms, you can give the macrolates are the drug of choice, and that is Tylosin at the rate of 10 mg per kg body weight intramuscular for 3 days. Oxytetracycline is also recommended. Then fluoroquinolone like enrofloxacin is also recommended. So oxytetracycline 15 mg per kg body weight, IM 6 to 8 days. And enrofloxacin, what is the dose rate of enrofloxacin in ruminants? Tell me. What is the dose rate of enrofloxacin? कि तुम लोग मेनका गांधी वाले क्लिनिशियन हो, ऐसे ही गाली नहीं दे रही, समझ रहे हो ना? फिर जाके खोल देना दुकान, वो गाली देगी तो सुनना, because you don't know anything. वो 12वीं पास होके दुनिया भर की चीजें बता रही है, and you don't know the enrofloxacin का dose rate, and now you are in 4th year. तो अपना अंदाजा लगा लो. Anyway, this is an assignment. You should know that. एक चीज आपको कलम पकड़ के नहीं सिखाई जाएगी. एनरोफ्लॉक्सासिन का डोज रेट नहीं पता है, 4th year के लास्ट स्टेज में है. Anyway, so how to prevent it? Isolate the infected animal. Strict hygienic measure, that biosecurity should be maintained if you are having a farm. Then only method of prevention is vaccination. Vaccination can be done, and live attenuated culture vaccine is available in the market. The dose rate is 0.2 ml intradermal at the ear tip. And at what age? 15-month maturity. At least it should be a maturity of 15. Then you should vaccinate that animal, and it will be prevented by that. Again, why we are giving it at the tip of ear? Because it may, in some cases, it may lead to the necrosis of that part, where you will be injecting that vaccine. So if it is at the tip of ear, you can remove it if the necrosis is there. If it is somewhere in the vital part, it is difficult to do that. why it is being done there. I'm asking about ruminants. Dog is a ruminant. Who does? That is yes, Sanu. Sanu साहब.
सर डॉग का पता था.
डॉग का पता था, बाकी का तो आएंगे मेनका गांधी इलाज करने. I am asking about ruminants. We are teaching. We are studying the goat, and you are writing in dogs. 20 mg तो कभी नहीं देते.
7.5 to 12 mg.
ये 5 से 20 किसने लिखा है? So you should know the dose rate. And again, I am requesting you, please go through the books, go through the literature of even the companies are providing. You should know that enrofloxacin is the most common antibiotic which is used in large animal practice as well as in small animal, means the ruminants as well. And you are not knowing the dose rate of this. What is the presentation of enrofloxacin? Can you name that one injection, the trade name of injection which is having enrofloxacin? एक ट्रेड नेम बताओ, एनरोफ्लोक्सासिन किस नाम से आती है मार्केट में? So we have less than 1 minute now. So we have finished this. You go through it. In the next class, I will be dealing with